So another small project that I have to do on the cart while the forge is still drying is I wanted to actually add, according to the design, a small pegboard on one side to hold, various tools and tongs and things like that. And so I purchased a pegboard. It's not as big as I really wanted. I kind of wanted it to fill the entire, one side of the cart. I couldn't find one exactly those dimensions, so at some point in the future, I'll probably have to get a custom one made, and so that it actually fits the entire cart. What we're going to need is obviously a pegboard, which I purchased this, and that should do the trick, at least for a little while, and maybe we'll find another project for this in the future, as if I find a better replacement. But this will be the pegboard underneath the cart. So we need this, as well as some basic angle iron. And the idea is this is going to run along the underside of the cart down the entire length. So roughly about from here, about 4.5 inches in, it's going to be the angle iron mounted, bolted on from the outside here. And then it'll run the whole length and then bolt on this side as well. And the pegboard, though doesn't fit the whole frame, it'll only be mounted, in the center middle area. The idea is that when I do find a bigger pegboard, I'll still be able to use that angle iron support that runs the whole length. And then for the bottom, I still haven't figured out what I'm gonna do. I figured I'll mount the pegboard and figure out something for the bottom. I'm guessing it'll be angle iron, but it might be sitting too tall, so I don't know yet. I didn't record it, but what I ended up doing was chopping the angle iron to length and then leaving this tab here, about a 1-inch tab. And the idea is somehow I'm going to bend this over to be relatively flush with this, and then that'll fit inside, and then essentially the bolt will go through here through the side of the cart and it will be mounted. At least that's the idea. I really don't want to just wail away on this with a hammer, but I don't really have anything else to do this with, so I'm just going to have to try to make it quick. So I think I'm going to need these, actually, either the vise or the anvil, to get these tabs bent over. So I actually have to unfold this thing and hopefully give it a try. So I think I can start it with the vise maybe, because I need it to bend pretty sharp. I mean, I could use the vise as well. Ooh, as I hit everything. I don't know if that'll bend it, but not very far because the angle iron itself will stop. I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm actually gonna bend this. And my guess is I'll end up just wailing away with a hammer. Well, after trying different angles and different things, I couldn't really come up with anything. I do have a small torch, which I guess I could heat this up a little bit, make the bend a little bit easier. Maybe that will be smarter. You know what? Couldn't hurt. Let me grab the torch. Just have a little handheld Burns-O-Matic TS8000 torch head here. Burns up to 20 million degrees if I really want it to. So I guess the idea is I'm gonna heat it up and then hold it over this edge and just wail away. I don't know if this will actually get it hot enough to make a difference, but can't hurt. Well, I guess it could hurt. Alright, I don't know if you can see it that far away on camera. On the next one, I'll turn off the lights. Alright, let's do it. And then I guess I'll just, well, don't want to hit the floor. Ah, crap. I have nothing to hit. All right. That's hot. Don't slip. Burn your handsies. So now it's a little twisted, partly because I didn't cut it as clean as I should have, but I should be able to. It might be too cold now. Oh yeah, now I'm just bending the crap out of that. Don't want to do that. Yeah, don't want to do that. Oh, no room. I'm sure the neighbors absolutely love me. All right, now that the tabs are bent, I'm going to try to get this thing to fit and see if it fits. So this is round 2. I just extra smashed the one side to hopefully give a little bit enough wiggle room to hopefully fit in the other side. A lot more of a pain than it should have been. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hacksaw and I'm going to trim off these extra tabs that when I bent it over, of course, it bent at an uneven angle and then overlapped those pieces of steel, which in essence made it considerably wider. So that's what I'm going to do. That was quick. What I did is I just trimmed up that extra that was kind of overlapping. And so now I probably should have just wailed on it with a hammer outside. And I might still do that. But one more torch session for each side. And a few more hammer blows. This one's a little wonky, but it should still work. A few more hammer blows and we should be good. Yeah. Now it's bending in a little bit. It's a little better. There we go. I think that might be as good as I'm actually going to get it, barring, actually trimming more off or going to an actual forge where I can get enough heat and actually bend this properly. But let's try to just fit this thing in. It should go like this. Roughly right there. Oh yeah, it is very close. And I think that's within manhandling range. All right. It's not wedged in too tight, but dang, pumpernickels. It's making it kind of a pain, extra pain. So, I guess I'll take the other clamp, try to clamp this out of the way of the drill. Where's my other clamp? I live in one room and I lose everything. There we go. So the idea is to clamp it kind of like this instead, so that I can still drill it. And it's pushing it up to the top as well. I should probably, because there's a really long angle iron flat against the flat of this, I should probably, the vibrations traveling through the cart will probably cause a rattle in between. I should really put some silicone or something and sandwich that. Yeah, I probably should. It's going to be a hassle, but... So I'm going to switch the clamp around on the other side to something like this, and then maybe I can just kind of lower the whole thing, put the silicone and raise it back up, and get it into position. Bada boom, beautiful. So I just put the silicone on, and I've got to relatively quickly get this thing into place without, well, while trying not to make a mess, I suppose. And I suppose I'll focus on one side, get that kind of lined up. And then get this side lined up. Let's get this clamped just to make sure it doesn't fall. And let's get this side lined up and squished into place. There we go. There we go. Squished into place. And make sure it's nice and tight so that silicone can squish out. And it is. Yep. Looks like it's a nice squeezing out. Battery died. So let's try to take a look. Might be a little difficult underneath to see. But essentially, I'll try to lift the color levels and stuff, but essentially this is what I put in. It's clamped in, ready to be bolted. There we go. And so the next thing is to clean up, I know it's hard to see, but clean up that extra silicone and then maybe let it set a little bit, but drill and put in some bolts while it's still snugged up really tight so that there's no loosening. So. Okay, so in my usual fashion, I don't think things through, but I probably should have measured things and did stuff to figure out, you know, like where the center is so I could put a bolt and then all that stuff. But you know what? I'm not very smart. And so I'm just gonna kind of feel around. You know how the 2-finger method? It works for all sorts of things. So I'm just gonna go in there, kind of feel around for the middle, punch, drill, and then whatever this hole ends up at, as far as measurement from the top down and from the inside, you know, to it, I'm just gonna do it the same thing on the other side and hopefully it works. So somewhere right there feels about right. And there we go. All right. Wow, it's really dull. But I never really tried to do so. You have my donor. So I get a door. Or get a door. So many options. I don't know what to do. Easy as pie. Alright, before I go any further, I'm vacuuming out these metal shavings because we don't want them getting everywhere, including my raccoon ones. Vacuumed and feeling fresh. Let's stick a bolt in there. I'm going to put a washer on the back side just to even out the pressure on the angle iron there. But on the outside, I'm not going to. Let's see how this goes. let's go ahead and tighten this puppy up while we're here, essentially, so I can remove this clamp. I didn't record it because I didn't really have an easy way to hold the camera and do all this on this side. But essentially the same thing. Punched a center hole roughly in the same spot as on the other side and put in a bolt, washer on the back side, and tightened her down. And now the silicone is still setting, so it's still liquid. So if there was any movement, the silicone should still be all good as it sets. And I don't know if we'll be able to see, but there it is. I'll boost the color maybe. And then there it runs all the way down. And now it's just to figure out how to mount the pegboard to it, that guy. So I thought about it, how I'm going to mount the pegboard, and what I kind of decided to do was not mount the pegboard directly to the angle iron because it'll be sitting too high, and it's like I said, it's a little too small. And so in order to mount it a little bit lower, which will make fastening the bottom of the pegboard easier, I'm going to take this strip of, well, it was 2-inch wide by 1/8 inch, and then I cut down. This is left over from making one of the angle braces for the arm, for the vise arm. But I'm going to cut this in half, and then I'm actually going to hang these two down the sides of the, so I'm going to hang them down this way and then hang this on those so that I can hang it a little lower and hopefully get it close enough to the bottom that I can actually mount the bottom as well. So that's the idea. The first thing I have to do is chop this thing in half and then do some basic measuring, and hopefully hanging it won't be too much trouble. Small cuts like that with the hacksaw aren't too bad. So the next step, I drilled the holes in these strips, and so I'm going to get under the cart, mark for these holes, and actually go ahead and drill those holes and mount these, and then I can put the pegboard up next to these, mark for the pegboard holes at the right height that I want it to be, and then put those in next. So I'm just going to mark this roughly like so. That's where that hole needs to be drilled. Maybe a little higher, but something. Maybe I'll mark where this is. There, that'll work out. Actually, I'm probably just going to drill as high as the drill will allow me because I'm underneath the cart and I don't have a lot of drill room. I should have drilled these holes before I glued and mounted this thing. All right. Do-do. So it's like that. Something like that. There we go. Now comes a super fun upside down drilling not fun time. Guess it doesn't really matter which way the bolt goes. I'm just going to finger snug it up, maybe a little tighter, so that I can put the pegboard up here and kind of, adjust these a little bit. I keep loosening it. No, I just suck. There we go. So it's snugged up, but should be movable. Now let's do the other one. Whew. Man, it is a long day. So now what I want to do is I want to put the pegboard up against these two strips and set it at the right height that I want it, up off the ground here, and then mark, where the hole needs to be in here. Then take these off, drill them, put them back on, put the pegboard on, and I guess I'll make the bottom mount brackets as well. Though it's getting a little late today, so might have to be tomorrow. We have here the pegboard temporarily placed and clamped into position. Ready for me to mark for the holes on these vertical strips that we bolted in yesterday. And so I'm going to have to kind of feel, there's already pre-built hole placements in the back on this pegboard, like that thing right there. And so I'm just going to use that as the placement for the holes for the strips. And then I'm going to take these off, drill those holes, and get this thing bolted up. And then the next thing is I'm going to make two small angle iron brackets for the bottom here. There's a little bit of a gap at the right height here, so that a piece of angle iron will actually come over here and up here and sit, essentially right at this lip, so that I can utilize a little piece of angle iron, boom here, bolt it there, and then one down there. So nice small little brackets for the bottom that will still be plenty weight bearing and hold everything still. There's nothing fancy about what I'm going to try to do here. I'm just going to leave these strips long, even though I'm not necessarily utilizing the whole thing. I could always trim it off later or do something like that. But essentially, the idea is I just kind of want to feel roughly where the hole is with my finger. And make a rough mark on this one. And then essentially, because the other strip, these holes line up perfectly from strip to strip, even though they're slightly different lengths, because I'm awesome at measuring, I can line up hole to hole and then use this mark to drill the other strip and essentially bolt the two strips together with this, and then drill one hole right there, and it should be even. Let's get this thing hole punched. I'm just going to use the dot as a general point, and then just eyeball the center, like a man. Which is probably not the center, but hey, you can't tell me what to do, Mom. Yeah, I'm not going to be grabbing things stuff. What? Is it around? Shouldn't really matter which strip goes where, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly get these mounted up top here and just snug them up, leave them to swing, so that way I have a little bit of wiggle room when I go to put the bolt in with the pegboard. Go over to the other side. going to be interesting because everything I make seems to be off by quite a bit. So I would be surprised and elated if this were to actually go together. I'm going to grab the pegboard and some more bolts and washers and see if we can get this baby together. See if we can get this thing up here. Voila, snugged up. Let's go to the other side and do it again. Just like that. I will tell you one thing. I'm surprised that any of this is working at all, because I have no idea what I'm doing, like at all. Boom. Well, it looks fairly even, actually. If we look at down the height gap, I know it won't show up very well on the camera because it's a GoPro and it has, you know, some good lens distortion, but that is actually fairly even. I am pretty happy with that. So it obviously swings back and forth right now. It won't once I add the bottom brackets, but essentially just get these things as straight and centered as possible, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten these all down. No sense in recording it, really. It's kind of boring, so see you then. Believe it or not, the pegboard is fairly straight up and down. It doesn't require very much adjustment, so I don't really need anything to hold it in place, I don't think. So the next thing actually is I'm going to be going outside and cutting some steel, because recently I picked up a angle grinder and to cut things like angle iron. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this smaller piece, this cutoff piece, and we're going to cut two brackets, so shing shing, out of that for the pegboard. And then while we're at it, I need to figure out what kind of brackets and things I want to make for the forge here. I just have it off the table right now. I'll just bring it up. It's a little heavy now that it's the cement's all dry and everything. I need to figure out what kind of brackets and things I want to make for the forge and cut those out while I'm out there, just to kind of maximize my time. And my guess is I'd just go really simple. If I look at what we have on the bottom here, it's essentially just straight bar leg feet things. And what I could do is drill a hole through these. If actually, I probably couldn't get a good enough angle on these to drill a hole. So the other option is to do a sandwich. So like I could cut, well, let me put this down gently. I could cut, say, an angle piece of angle iron that goes the whole way across on this leg, and then I bolt on the outside here and sandwich the legs together without having to cut a hole or drill a hole in the forge, which would probably be better because then the vibrations won't mess up the cement and stuff. It's a little bit more angle iron use. But I could say do 2 angle iron strips down the length of this and use bolts to sandwich and sandwich. And then on this side, I would just need a piece of angle iron, just a solo. It doesn't even need to be attached on this. It's just to keep it level on the bottom. So I could save on 1 piece instead of doing 2 sandwiches. But, you know, to be safe, I should probably do 2 strips and do some bolts, sandwich, 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 and then these strips will then be bolted down to the top of the cart. So I'm going to measure up. Hopefully I can get all I need out of this piece. I do have another 6-foot piece, but hopefully I can get it all out of here. I will cut the 2 brackets for the pegboard and I guess the 4 brackets, 3 or 4 brackets depending on what I decide for the forge. The plan was, oh, holy crap, the light is bright. So the plan was originally to go outside and record me angle grinding these brackets up, but there was a bunch of people around and I was already inconveniencing them by throwing sparks everywhere and making a whole bunch of noise. So I didn't want to also be the guy that's like, hey YouTube, hey video platform of choice, I'm so popular, look at me, I have a video camera. I didn't want to be that guy. So I just didn't record, I just chopped it up. And originally I was going to drill all the holes in all the brackets as well. But then after I was done cutting everything, my hands were just hurting. And I didn't realize it was 22 degrees out, and just holding onto the steel for, you know, a couple minutes at a time just froze my hands and they were already starting to hurt. So if anybody cares, -6 Celsius. So it's pretty chilly, not the coldest. It's not quite in the negatives Fahrenheit yet. But at that point, I'm definitely going to be having to wear some gloves when I'm handling this stuff because it saps the heat out of you instantaneously. But long story less long, I decided to go with the sandwich method. So we have 4 7.5 inch bracket pieces, which each of these are going to go like this, essentially sandwiched up. The forge foot is going to go in between there, and then shabam, shabam, and then these boom, 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 bolted down to the cart. And of course, same here. Now, these little guys are the little baby brackets. Little baby brackets. Oh. These little guys are going to be the brackets for the bottom of the pegboard. So they didn't need to be anything big. They'll still be plenty strong, and it's just to keep things from wobbling around mainly. So that's what these things are for. So next thing is I need to pair these guys up, kind of like they are, clamp them or fix them in place somehow, and so that I can drill the clamping holes, the ones that I'm going to use the squeeze with, at the same time so that they line up, and then might as well just flip them over and then drill the cart holes, and then drill these holes. I do have to figure out where the hole needs to be for to line up with the bottom of the pegboard. So I'm going to have to put this down there and do some high-tech finger measuring to make some marks, and then drill those holes too. Lots of drilling, lots of metal shavings all over my penthouse. It's the best. I didn't bother recording the hole making process. It was kind of boring and it was getting late, so it's actually the next day. But the first brackets I'm going to start with are these little guys, and so that we can essentially finish up over there in the darkness. I suppose the first thing I should probably just check in general. It's one that the camera's actually looking at the thingamabob, but just see, it should line up just because there's a lot of wiggle room here in this hole, which is why I'll end up putting a washer on it. But as long as this thing can sit flat while the bolt is on there, which it looks like it'll work great. So that's good. Let me get a washer actually. Ay, ay, ay. It's jammed on itself. What the heck? Of all the things you could watch me not know how to do. There we go. So the pegboard was actually relatively straight up and down. I'm just going to make some basic measurements here just to make sure, and it actually is pretty dang close. So I'm not going to do much moving. I'm just going to simply snug this guy up, get it in position, and then mark where kind of need to drill the hole, which I don't necessarily need to put on the bolt or anything, but just to make sure it's all good. So there we go. I guess so. Right there is where I need to drill to mount that guy. Might be hard for you to see, but as per usual, I mismeasured and made another mark, but hopefully now these bolt holes will be in line with each other. Ooh, that's loud. And that is the downside of being on this big metal plate that the cart is made of. Let's just boo, 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 boo. Super, nothing but the best. That should do it. Let's drill. So with those holes cleaned up, I should be able to get this first bracket attached. At least that's the hope. At some point, maybe after the cart is all finished, I'm going to probably go through and snip off all these extra bolt ends that are sticking out all over the place, just to help clean things up and reduce things getting caught and all that jazz. Make things look a little nicer. Like right now, I'm having trouble just getting this bolt through the hole because it's interfering with the other bolt. And it's at an angle. I can't push it in because because this bolt's now in the way. Now I'm not using any Loctite or silicone on these. I might regret it one day in the future. But I guess we'll have to find out. I suppose I shouldn't necessarily tighten this. Well, it's not going anywhere, so. I was thinking I shouldn't tighten it until I get the other bracket on, but there's no, like, it's not like this is wiggling around anyway, so. Alright, that should be plenty tight. And now we do the other one. There we go. So, same thing. Let's oh no, I got it. I got it jammed on its own washer again and I can't move the bolt. Twice on this side. I don't know what it is. Alright, I just gotta remember, don't tighten that, because if I do, I don't have room for the bolt. Where is this? Nice and solid. I'm gonna look at this thing and see if, did I really mismeasure that bad, or? I'm gonna remeasure this off camera. I mean, I'm not gonna fix it now. But I thought I measured this pretty well. It is probably slanted because, oh, you know what? I measured where the holes need to be drilled so they're an even spacing from here to here. But the brackets, I didn't measure those bracket holes. I just drilled them. So the holes themselves on the brackets are probably off from each other. And so even if the holes in the cart are even, it's gonna twist the pegboard. So that's probably what it is, but if you can feel it through your screen. It's pretty nice. I might end up going back and making some changes, but it is permanently mounted and sturdy. So that's one big milestone down. The next one is to put the forge right there.
Hey, who's that Quotamon?
Hey, I'm Drew Barrymore. I like this guy named Dookie too. Not Dookie too, just Dookie. Anyway, here's your quote of the week. You're gonna need a bigger boat. Anyway, bye.